worry. People like me, we don't go anywhere because we don't believe that we can get there. I'm my own worst Eskimo. Son, listen to me. I'm trying to help you here. You don't have to go anywhere. Yes, I do. I do have to go somewhere, because if I don't, I'll never go anywhere. Now be my best friend and get out of my way.
Tales from the Ditch!
Welcome to Tales from the Ditch. Once again, in the apocalypse, it's me, Seth, with Sean, recording this for our tens of listeners. And we have an awesome guest on today that we've actually known since we were teenagers. It's been a while. Mr. Jim Williams. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing all right. You know, self-isolating.
Yeah. This is for... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking you how you guys are.
I'm going nuts, but luckily I'm in therapy, so she gets to hear all about that. But other than that,
I'm doing well. Really I'm just being the role of the teacher in my son's life, which is kind of fun, but very aggravating. I couldn't imagine having to do that with 30 kids.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I don't have any kids, but I can sort of guess what that's like.
It's terrible. I'm just going to say it.
Would not recommend. Yeah, what, Sean, aren't you teaching him like agriculture? You were teaching him how to grow stuff on his own?
Yeah, we had an agriculture class where we planted onions, and it was fun. So there you go.
Yeah.
I thought you were making potatoes. I totally did not get that picture correct.
Yeah, we're homesteading. That's the term nowadays.
Probably not the worst idea.
Yeah,
have you been to a grocery store lately?
Exactly. That was my thought was, hey, you know, I need to be self-reliant in the area of growing my own food.
Dude, it is just so crazy to me. Like, it shows how brittle everything is that it wasn't even like 2 months in or a month in, like a week or two into this, I came to a store and everything's out. People are freaking out. And I'm like, this is all it took to show how many things like that our society, our culture is not as strong as we think that people, it just, I don't know. It's nuts to me. Some of the responses I've seen Jim post some stories even from the store. And I'm like, how is that happening? How are humans acting like that?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of strange. And what was interesting to me about it was in the first couple of weeks, there weren't any legitimate shortages. Like, it was all just people panic buying.
Yes.
And you know, all of the industry was still open. The truck lines were still open. Manufacturing and warehousing was all still open. And there weren't any legit shortages. And people lost their minds. And now we're going to start seeing some like actual real shortages because like people who pick our food on the farms are getting sick. People who process the food in the manufacturing plants and things like that are all getting sick. People in the grocery stores are getting sick. Truck drivers are getting sick. And so I don't think we've seen the worst of it because the first batch of shortages, you know, where you couldn't find toilet paper or Lysol or whatever was just a panic response. And all of that stuff existed. People were just consuming too much of it.
Right.
And in the coming weeks, we're going to see legitimate shortages because the people who make those products are getting sick too.
Are you in Reno, Jim?
Yeah.
It's so funny. I'm in Sparks. And so I've been going to the stores kind of local to Sparks. And for the most part, it seems like Sparks people have been kind of waiting for this to happen for years now. And so everybody's already ready. Everybody has respirators and things like that. And I went to the Walmart in Northwest Reno, and it was honestly like World War Z. Nobody was wearing any masks. Everybody was coughing on each other. People were like yelling across. It was like the stock exchange. Somebody was like, I got toilet paper over here. It was crazy. And I was actually quite surprised.
So there's a thing I've noticed. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The thing I've noticed, and I posted about this a little bit on Facebook, and I was trying really hard not to make it sound classist, but there's no way not to. We live just outside of Midtown. Okay. So the stores that are closest to us are either working class blue collar folk or way rich folks.
Oh, okay.
And depending on which, like if we go to Save Mart or Whole Foods, at Save Mart, everybody's got a mask, everybody's being cool. People are like, I watched a guy pull toilet paper down off the top shelf so other people, he wasn't even shopping for it and he didn't work there. He was just trying to help other shoppers.
That's cool.
It was, yeah. And then you go to Whole Foods and no one's wearing a mask. People are screaming at you. My wife was at the store a few days ago and she watched a guy lick his fingers, open a produce bag, pick up produce, put it back, pick up another one, put it back, pick up another one. Okay, this is the one I want. All with the hand he had just licked.
Ugh.
And there definitely seems to be, in my limited experience, a class break where it's just like working class people are kind of taking this seriously, and they're largely the ones who've lost their income. But then the people that are probably going to ride this out and be okay aren't taking it seriously at all.
Right.
Yeah. It's so funny because so my my father-in-law is an ex-cop, which he did not like me the first couple of years he met me. Big surprise. But he gave us like all
I actually know your father-in-law.
Yes, you do. You do know him. He lived
was
in the
my
same
neighbor for like 19 years.
Yeah.
Wait, really? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a small world.
We lived across the street and 6 houses east.
Yeah.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
he really anyway, yeah, he had reason he didn't trust me or like me. But when we got married, he gave me this like almost doomsday kit of emergency water, toilet paper, masks, ammo. And I remember I was like, classic Republican, and I was a total dick about it. And then I go in our closet and I go, oh, babe, we have emergency water, toilet paper, and ammo. I was like, oh, yeah, I got this 10 years ago from your dad when I was mocking him. I'm like, oh, yeah. I was like, now I remember. But, oh, my gosh, that's crazy. See, I think there's a point to what you're saying, though, with Whole Foods. That is interesting.
All of the negative experience is sorry. All of the negative experiences I've had grocery shopping have been in South Reno.
Ugh.
Take that information and do with it what you will, but that's a thing.
For anybody who doesn't live in town, South Reno is renowned for being the kind of wealthier, snootier, higher class area, I would say.
Those are the rich crackers.
Yeah. The
Those
clean
are both
whites.
accurate statements.
So we're actually probably doing this kind of out of order. We should probably introduce you, Jim, and maybe get a little biography. I'll just say what I know about you was being in a band in the Reno scene in the late 90s, early 2000s. You were in an awesome band called Twice, and you've been in a bunch of bands, I know, but that was the one around the time I was in the scene. And you also were the Mirabelli's guy, and you sold our album when nobody else would. Which was awesome.
Yeah, all of those things true. I sang for Twice for the entire existence of that band. We had a number of lineup changes, but I was one of the consistent members from day one to the last day. And I worked at Mirabelli's for the better part of a decade.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I'll say one more thing, and maybe if you can give like a short biography about yourself, that'd be great. But one more thing is you were always in a sea of dickheads. You were always the super nice guy, I felt like.
Oh, thanks.
I remember you guys had a shed to practice in a long time ago. And I would get run out of those sheds because Seth and I, for some reason, were kind of exiled from the Reno scene for a while. And nobody really liked me, first of all, because I was young, but also because we were
bad people, Sean. Just
I was kind of a little edgelord teenager. But I remember going to the shed and listening to you guys, and the whole band was really nice, but you were specifically nice and invited us in. And I think you had pizza or something and let me have a piece of pizza. I was super stoked.
That's probable. I don't recall that exactly, but that was also like 150 years ago. So short biography. I'm born and raised in Reno. Got into the music scene fairly late, like post high school. I started going to shows and joining bands and stuff. Um, to your point about me being nice, there was a method to that.
Hmm.
I have always believed, and I still believe to this day, that punk and hardcore are a youth driven movement, and that especially now at almost 48, I'm a tourist in that scene. And as much as I enjoy the fact that kids still come and see my bands and listen to me, it's not my scene, it's their scene. And I've always tried to treat the younger kids coming into the scene with as much respect as possible, because I want to help them shape the scene into what I think it should be. And I've always felt that punk and hardcore should be community driven and welcoming. You know, I gravitated towards that scene because I was the kid that was picked on in high school, and I was the kid that was the outcast and didn't really fit in anywhere else. And then I discovered punk, and all of the older kids I met initially were so nice to me and so kind and so welcoming and showing me around and teaching me, you know, how to be a punk. And so I wanted to carry that tradition on in the way I presented myself in the scene.
That's actually, see, that's so cool because I remember one of the first, and I didn't always have positive experiences, but one of the first positive ones I had was what was it? Resurrection Records, I think was the name.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they needed a PA system for a Red Rum show, and we had one. And I remember I showed up, my friends, you know, we had to borrow someone's truck and bring it in. And I thought, okay, I'll just stand aside. I don't want to bother anyone. But everyone there was super cool and appreciative. And I was some 15, 16-year-old kid. And they were even telling me, like, oh, if you like this band, you should get this record. And oh, you got to listen to this guy. And telling me about like people I'd never heard of outside of the radio or anything. And I was like, man, this is actually pretty cool. I was like, this is not what I thought it would be. And they were just super cool people. And I was like, and some of these dudes are kind of dorky like I am. I was like, this is pretty cool. So
So I think like Red Rum in particular was one of the bands that I gravitated towards.
yeah.
Spencer Benavidez has always been just one of the kindest, coolest, most
Yeah.
accepting people I ever met. And I think he and Dean from Gehenna were the primary motivators for me to behave the way that I did behave within the scene. I
Okay.
remember watching Dean teach younger kids how to skateboard, and you know, and it was always just so cool and just welcoming and inviting and positive. And it's funny, I think, because the bands, especially the bands from Reno that get the most kind of negative press, for lack of a better term, were the people, the individuals who I found to be the most positive and kind.
That's interesting. Because I know, yeah, Gehenna has their own history in the scene,
Yeah.
and I've sometimes brought up to certain people, I'm like, man, you know, they're kind of interesting, and everyone always has an opinion when I bring up that specific band. They always have something to say about it. But
Right. And it's funny because I remember really early on spending time with Dean at the indoor skate park that was over off of I'm gonna lose the street name. I've lost the street name. Anyway, there was an indoor skate park,
yeah,
and
The
I remember
Stonies one?
no, it's
On.
before Stonies, like way before Stonies.
Oh, wow.
It was it was a wrestling gym for a little while. The original Holland project was right next door to it. Why can't I
oh
think of it?
crap, that
Oh, I
was,
know what you're
oh,
talking about.
We're
did they have
Google mapping
Skate
this.
Jam there?
They probably did. It was like a multi-level place. They had like a little shop down below, skate
Okay.
shop. There was a Halloween show there one year. I remember Fall Silent dressed up as the Misfits, and December dressed up as King Diamond, Merciful Fate. Um,
That's so dope. Gosh, I cannot remember. Yeah,
It's
that
funny while you're
Sean.
thinking of that. It's so funny that you mentioned how nice Dean was, because Gehenna was honestly one of the most brutal sounding bands
yeah,
that you could think
uh,
of.
and still are. Their new stuff is every bit as brutal as their early stuff. Keystone. It was on Keystone.
There you go.
That's right. Right by the tracks.
Yeah, right, exactly. So anyway, I remember being there. I think it was for a show. I can't remember who was playing now. It might have been Good Riddance and Fury 66 from Santa Cruz.
Jeez.
But I remember we were all upstairs. We were waiting for the show to start. And Dean had this little crowd of kids around him, younger kids. And he was teaching them all how to ollie and kickflip and all this stuff. I was like, see, man, that's where it's at. Like, bring the kids in, treat them like they're people, and be kind to them and give them positive experiences. That's such a better way to approach it than some weird, like, meathead, fight or flight nonsense.
Like
Yeah.
Seth.
So I actually have a funny story about Seth, and I don't know if he's going to want me to tell this or not, but I'm doing it.
Say
Go
it.
ahead.
When I first met Seth, he was a spiky, mohawked, leathered vest, spike jacket wearing punk rock kid.
Yeah.
And he and I put together an Artist Against Racism show
Oh,
at
no.
the fourth Turn Bar and Grill. You remember that, Seth?
Yeah,
On
I
Kids
remember.
Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at some point we stopped seeing each other. And the next time I saw him, he was like one of the hockey mask kids. And it was just like, literally the last conversation you and I had was like how dumb straight edge was. Because I was straight edge. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well now you're straight edge, so kudos. But really this? You know what I mean? It was just such a weird, because there was like a 6-year gap where I didn't see him.
Yeah.
And he was from like this skinny little mohawked kid to this like crazy buff, like hardcore dancer dude. And it was just so weird to me because like in my weird little brain, because we hadn't seen each other, like minutes had passed, but it was like probably 6 years.
Yeah. I saw you at the VFW hall. I had on a Tyrant shirt and it said something like I kill for straight edge. And you were like, dude, you're like, I'm so sick of this like negative shit. You're like, what? Come on, man. And like, you were super nice about it. I was like, what, man? I got killed for straight edge, bro. Come on. It was like, and I had no reason why I even wore this shirt. It's like, I didn't even want to like do that, but I was like, come on, man. We got to kill. It's like, yeah. And the funny thing is, now that I listen back, I didn't even like Tyrant songs. I didn't even think they played music well.
Yeah.
But yeah. Jeez.
They were not a good
Oh,
one.
that's crazy.
But
Sean,
it was just, for me, it was just such a funny. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to see, I wanted to get into, because I want to make sure, because this always happens, especially when we're catching up with people. We kind of forget. I wanted to get into your hiking channel and kind of talk about your journey with that.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about that.
I would like to hear about the journey to arriving at that. And another thing is, I just wanted to say, man, that I'm so sorry with what happened with Atticus. I know that we were going to record a podcast a while ago, and that was right at the end of Atticus's life, and I'm just so sorry about that.
Yeah, we should probably put that in a little bit of context, I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
So Atticus was a puppy that my wife and I decided to adopt, knowing that he was already in the early stages of kidney failure. And part of that was a birth defect, and part of that was neglect from the people who had him before we did. Ugh. And we adopted him knowing full well what we were taking on. And the early estimates from 3 different veterinarians were, 5 to 6 years. And so I was just like, okay, we're going to have this dog that should live to be 15, but he'll only live to be 5 or 6. And we'll just give him the best possible life that any dog could ever have. Yeah. And unfortunately, his kidney disease progressed faster than anyone could have imagined. And it wasn't anything anyone did or didn't do. It wasn't, it wasn't anything that the vet could have slowed down or stopped. It's just kidneys are weird organs, and they're going to function or not kind of on their own terms. And so in the end, we only got 53 weeks.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was rough. But in that 53 weeks, he summited 7 of the Tahoe Basin peaks. He walked over 40 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail and almost the entire Tahoe Rim Trail.
Wow.
So he definitely, I think, lived more in his year than most dogs get to in a full life.
Totally agree.
And what a beautiful part of your family too. He seriously, I'd see the pictures you had and videos and your stories, and that, I mean, that was a thing of beauty, man, to give him that in this life. So that was beautiful.
And he was such a unique dog. I've never experienced a relationship like that with a dog before. Like
Huh.
up to his very last moment when we were sitting on the veterinarian's office floor and just in tears knowing what was coming next, he was like giving us kisses and his tail was wagging,
Oh.
just letting us know it was all going to be okay. Just like right up to the last moment of his life, he was just like, "Hey man, it's going to be fine. You guys are going to get through this." He was really special. As heartbreaking and painful as it was, I wouldn't trade a second of it.
Gosh. Thanks, Sean. Now I'm thinking about all the dogs I had growing up, you bastard.
Sorry, man. I think it's cool though. Like that's a special thing. There really is something special with, I would say, pets and dogs specifically, that even though it's terrible and heart-wrenching because their lifespans don't match up with ours usually, it's still so worth it to know them and to like have them as companions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, with Addie, as short as it was, I wouldn't trade a second of it.
That's awesome. Sean, from now on, this show is about dogs. Every episode. I'm making the call. I will find every photo. I grew up with beagles, and I had one dog for 16 years, and that dog was like, helped me through trauma, pain, everything. Dogs. Yeah, this show's about dogs now, Sean. I'm changing the title. It'll be called Dogs and Shit.
So, on that subject, the first dog I rescued in my adult life, like after we had dogs growing up, obviously at my parents' house and stuff like that. But the first dog that I rescued after being on my own was a 7-year-old lab mix named Nakos. And when I was working at Mirabelli's, actually, the SPCA would bring like harder to adopt dogs into the mall, and in one of the many abandoned storefronts. And every morning I'd walk in, and here was this obviously older, little black lab looking dog, and her tail would start to twitch every time I walked in the door. And it was the final day of them being in there, and they only had like 3 dogs left, and Nakos was one of them. And I walked in, and she got up and like walked over to me, and I told the lady, and I was like, "Well, if she's here when I get off work, then I'll adopt her." And she was there. So I was like, "All right, I'm a man of my word. I'm taking this dog home." And I figured at 7 years old, coming from, she had been dumped by her former family because they got a new puppy or whatever.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm going to just spoil this dog for, the 3 or 4 years that she probably has left. And just like the end of her life is going to be the best part of her life, period. She lived to be 19.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
It was like she got into our house and she was just like, "Okay, I'm restarting the clock. This is day one." She lived to be 19, and we went on tons of adventures and hikes and camping trips, and she was just such a great dog. And so kind of her legacy now is that my wife and I adopt harder to adopt dogs almost exclusively. And that's been kind of our mission, and Nakos' legacy is that we'll find the dog that nobody wants, and we'll bring them into our house and treat them like kings or queens.
That's awesome.
Jeez.
19 that's miraculous age. I mean, that's crazy.
Every day we had with her after like 10 years old, I was like, this is a gift. Like, she shouldn't still be here. And then she was 12, and then she was 15, and I was like, are you immortal? But so yeah, anyway, that's where it all started with us, like adopting dogs and fostering dogs and things like that.
Uh-oh. It looks like Seth got disconnected. Can you still hear me, Jim?
I can, yeah.
Okay. Sounds like we're good. It's all Seth's problem. Well, yeah, so you just decided at some point to start adopting rescues, which is awesome. How did you end up having a YouTube channel on hiking?
So I've always loved hiking. I've always loved camping and being outdoors. And in 2002-ish, I think. I'm not good with dates. Anyway, at some point I decided I was going to walk the Tahoe Rim Trail.
Yeah.
And my nephew came with me, and we made it about halfway. Well, let me back that up. He made it 2 days in, and then he quit.
Ugh.
He got really sick. He's diabetic, and I think it was just too much physical exertion. He got like scary sick, like to the point where I was looking for places to hide our gear so I could carry him out and then come back and get all our stuff. Yeah, he was like sick. So we got him out and safe, and for whatever reason, I decided I was going to keep going just by myself. So I dumped whatever gear I didn't need, now that there weren't two of us, and kept going. And I rolled my ankle about at the halfway mark, and it was just a perfect shitstorm. I had everything mapped out. Like we're walking this many miles per day. This is where we're camping, and I had the whole trip planned. And once I was by myself, all the plan just kind of went out the window, and I was just like, I'm just gonna walk till I get tired, and then that's where I'll set up my tent. And this particular day, I had been feeling really, really good. I had walked enough that I could take like a full day off and just chill. And so the plan was I was going to walk into Tahoe City, and they have a campground just right in the middle of town on the lake.
Okay.
I was like, okay, so I'm going to go in, I'm going to get a campsite, I'm going to take a whole day and just do nothing. Just chill out in my tent, go swim in the lake. And it's like one of 2 points on the whole trail where you're actually next to Lake Tahoe, because the whole rest of the rim trail is way far away from the lake. So I got into town, and it was Memorial Day, and there were no campsites.
Oh no.
And so I'm talking to the ranger, and I'm like, man, I don't even have a car. Like my tent takes up like this much room. Can I just borrow like a sliver of somebody else's campsite? I'll even pay full price. I don't care about that part. I just want to stay here. Nope, can't do it.
Oh man.
And so from Tahoe City in either direction on the Tahoe Rim Trail, there's like this 8-mile area where you can't camp. So I basically walked 2 days worth
Oh my gosh.
to get to Tahoe City to earn this day off. And then it's like 6:00 at night, and I'm looking at a minimum of 8 more miles to find a place to set up my campsite.
Ugh.
And coming out of Tahoe City there, it's just like straight uphill for the first mile. So, and there's no water. That's super important part to the story.
Ugh.
So I filled up all my water jugs and everything at the Truckee River, because it goes right through right there. And I started up the hill, and I just walked until I found a campsite. And at some point along the trip, I rolled my ankle a little bit, and it didn't hurt. I was like, oh wow, I dodged a bullet. Like that could have been worst case scenario, but I think I'm fine. And I got to camp, ate dinner, just went straight to sleep. Woke up in the morning, and my ankle was like a grapefruit in a sock.
Oh my gosh.
And so I've got basically 8 miles downhill through rocks and danger, or 6 miles uphill to a dirt road where I can get someone to pick me up. And so I opted for the 6 miles uphill, just limping along, just miserable, dumped all my extra water. I kept a liter and a half for the whole day, and just started trudging along until I could find this fire road. And at some point during the night while I was sleeping, all my stuff got wet. I don't know if it rained or if it was just dew or whatever, but everything was wet. So my cell phone didn't work anymore.
Oh no.
So I get one text out to my wife, and I'm like, I'm hurt. I'm going to be at this coordinate marker on the map. Send somebody. And I hit send, and my phone completely died. So I had no idea if the message even got out. And so I started my way up and to where I was going to be. And I had given my parents the exact same map that I had with all the same markers and everything, so that if I referenced a coordinate number, they could look on their map and it would be the exact same information. So I get to where I said I would be, and the road's completely washed out. it was like an abandoned fire road, and the map I had was out of date.
Oh no.
There was no way. Like, I don't care how gnarly your 4-wheel drive was, you were not getting up this road.
Oh my gosh.
So I followed it down the best I could to another road, and it was kind of the perfect spot, because in order to turn on the road that I told everyone I was going to be on, you had to drive up this road, this second road. And so I just sat down, made myself some lunch, and just waited. And like an hour went by and there was nobody. 2 hours went by and there was nobody. And then like 4 hours went by and I was out of water and there was nobody. So I packed all my shit up again and started hobbling down this dirt road towards the actual highway. And my plan then was to just hitchhike into whatever the nearest town was and find like a payphone. So I made it, I don't know, maybe 200 yards down this road, and a Tahoe search and rescue vehicle comes up. And they're like, "Hey, are you okay?" No, I'm not. And they're just like, "All right, we'll sit down and, let us turn around. We'll come back." And so what it ended up being was a training thing. It was 2 firemen in training and 1 actual fireman. And their plan was they were going to go out, and one of them was going to lay in the pretend to be hurt. And then the 2 trainees were going to, go through their test. Like, oh, we have to do this and this and that. And so they were super stoked to find like an actual hurt hiker, because then neither one of them had to lay down in the dirt. But the actual fireman, like, he's like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Oh, I rolled my ankle back over here." And he's like, "That was 12 miles ago." "Yeah, man, I know." And he's like, "You went 12 miles on a rolled ankle?" "Yeah, man." It's like, "Sit down now. Which ankle is it?" And the trainee just goes, "It's his left one. I can see it from here." So after I healed, I kept hiking and kept backpacking, and eventually my buddy Brian, who plays drums in my current band, The Scattering, started going out with me. And at some point we decided to make a Facebook community page where people could connect and plan hikes together and trade gear and trade skills, and just everybody could come together in like a community setting and learn how to be better hikers together. And we called it Goatlord. I'm pretty sure the name came from Brian. And then I ran that page, I think, for almost 2 years, and it just never took off the way I wanted it to. Mm-hmm. And I still had that drive to kind of connect with people and help people be better hikers. And so I just changed the Facebook page into a YouTube channel. That's how that started.
It's pretty sweet too. There's you cover pretty much everything that you need, at least to hike Sierra area, I feel like.
I try. I think one of the things that sets my channel apart from a lot, because there's a surprising number of hiking channels on YouTube, and some of them are, wildly successful with 10,000 or more subscribers and just like gear endorsements and all this crazy stuff. But I think the thing that sets my channel apart is I don't edit out the parts where I've screwed up. So, like if I do something incredibly stupid and like put my life in danger, you all get to watch that happen.
Yeah.
Whatever the end result of that is. And I think a lot of the channels I see are especially like long trail channels, people that hike the entirety of the Pacific Crest Trail, or try to get the Triple Crown, where they hike all 3 of the big north-south trails in the United States. And a lot of it is just kind of braggy, I guess, in a weird way. It's like, "Oh, I walked 35 miles today and here's what I saw," and blah, blah, blah. And then, but you never see like, "Well, I walked 20 miles today because I took a wrong turn, and 10 miles of that was totally the wrong direction." And so I think my channel's geared more towards weekend warriors and day hikers and stuff, like people who can't take 6 months off of their life and walk a 2,000 mile trail all in one shot,
Totally.
Yeah, because I mean that's a really small percentage of people who are into hiking and can also just like check out for 4 to 6 months and walk 2,000 miles or more, So my channel's geared more towards just regular people who can go out like on a Saturday, Sunday and like stay out camping one night or whatever. But also, I like showing that not every day on the trail is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes you screw things up and sometimes you put yourself in danger. And so, yeah, I think that's part of what I'm trying to do that's different than a lot of the other hiking.
Hey, Jim, is there a hike you can think of that stands out where you went, man, like you were just in awe of how beautiful it was? Like you were maybe tired, cold, worn out, but you looked out, saw where you were, and it almost like took you by surprise of like, damn, this is like amazing what I get to do, amazing where I am.
Couple actually, I think that fit that. I think the first time Brian and I did Mount Whitney fell into that category
Okay.
because we had just the best possible weather you could hope for being on that particular mountain, and we did what I jokingly call the tourist route because it's the trail that most people who summit Mount Whitney take.
Okay.
And when we got up to the top, I mean, there was a completely cloudless sky, and it was like you could see forever. And I've never, I had at that point anyway, I had never seen anything like that because it's the highest mountain in the continental United States, and we're just standing on the top of it in a completely cloudless, sunny day, and any direction you looked, you could just see as far as the horizon. It was stunning. It was amazing. I think another one that falls into that category, we did Hawkspeak Peak, which is near Yosemite,
Okay.
and we actually camped in Yosemite, and then to get to Hawks Peak, you have to bushwhack quite a bit off trail, and before you get to that turnoff, you walk out into this meadow that I think is part of the John Muir Trail, but don't quote me on that. I could be completely wrong. This is a big reason why I hike with Brian as much as I do, is he remembers every detail of every summit and every trail and everything. I mean, he's
Dang.
just this walking encyclopedia of hiking knowledge, and I have zero sense of direction. So we make a good team. He knows everything, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is east. And
Gosh.
9 times out of 10, it's but anyway, so we walk out into this meadow, and my jaw just dropped. It was, to this day, the most beautiful place that I have ever stood. The grass was probably thigh high. The whole thing was just covered in every different kind of wildflower you can possibly imagine. It looked like something out of a Disney movie. It didn't even feel real.
Wow. See, that is something like I think that is so important to have moments of like awe to just go, oh my gosh, to see something bigger than you, something so beautiful, and just like even as you were describing that, I was like, man, I really want to go outside right now. Like, oh, dang.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate your YouTube channel, partially because it's local, because I think the only other channel with like Reno area hiking was this guy who was like a nudist, and so he liked to film himself. He had like the Google Street View camera, and he would just film himself naked hiking all these trails. And I'm always trying to figure out, oh, what's on this trail, or how do I get here or there? And I hated watching that guy. So I appreciate that. But the other thing I appreciate about it is exactly that. Like, you expose, I think, to the world some of the beauty that, for at least us in the Tahoe, Truckee Meadows area, something that's so available to us. And I would say probably anybody, anywhere, it's available
Yeah.
to them. But it's nice to know that something's out there that you can go get to, like you said, in a day or two.
Yeah, I think in a large part that's why I've never left the Reno area. It's just, I mean, we can drive an hour in almost any direction out of town and find something amazing.
Yeah.
And there's national parks that are an hour drive away. There's the BLM land and public lands that we have access to that are less than an hour away. if you want to go further, a couple years ago, a buddy of mine and I did the Ruby Crest Trail.
Oh, yeah.
That is probably the most beautiful part of Nevada, and so many people don't know about it. And it's one of those things where it's just like, gosh, we have access to all this stuff, within less than a day's drive from our hometown. And I do think that is kind of a unique aspect of living where we live. I don't think it is like that everywhere.
No, it's so amazing because I've had Tahoe still, and that whole area is one of the most beautiful spots I've been to. Another one was, I remember we went camping on the Oregon coast, and I think it's Bandon, Oregon. I might be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we had just had our first kid, and he's on my back as we're walking down the beach, and the sun's setting, and you can't tell the difference between the reflection on the sand and the sky. It's just blending together, the purples, the blues, and there was freaking wild horses walking by. My son's just seeing this, and I was like, this is so much better than listening to Tyrant. Like, this is so like, it was so beautiful, where I've even had moments like that where I go, why would I want to be just negative and treat people like crap all the time when I can have a life where I'm actually doing cool things and seeing beautiful things? And I don't know, I love seeing your channel, man, because if someone had asked me 20 years ago, like, hey man, Jim's gonna be doing hiking channels, that wouldn't have been my go-to thing of like, yes, that's what I know about Jim. He's all about hiking. He's going to put a hiking channel 20 years from now. And it's so cool to see, man. It really is.
Thanks.
I think
it's a lot of fun.
I think you're onto something, though, about how not everybody has this. Like, everybody has nature and everybody has the ability to maybe get out of town, I think, and experience something. But I do think there is something special about kind of the Sierra Nevada wilderness.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how many there are off the top of my head. Brian would probably know this, like most people know their last name, but there's half a dozen 14,000 foot summits you can go stand on that are just like walk ups that you don't need ropes or anything. And like, where else in the country can you go, oh, I'm going to climb this other 14,000 foot mountain today?
Right. And there's something about, I see people doing the Appalachian Trail or whatever, and that seems cool. And I don't want to throw shade on those people or anything, but and this is hard to say because I usually am like more of a Biggie fan than a Tupac fan. But when it comes to wilderness, I think the West Coast is the best coast because there's just something about here with our kind of granite and pine and manzanita tree that you don't get in the kind of deciduous forest like the Appalachian Trail. And whenever I watch movies like in the wintertime, the East Coast, everything just looks dead and like Halloween, basically. And here, everything's still alive in the winter, and it's still green, and it's awesome. So I don't know. There's something weird about it that I can't quite explain.
So there's kind of a weird culture around hiking YouTube. Also, like I've made friends with people who have channels who I'll probably never meet in the real world, but I talk to them like a couple times a week because we both have, we all have our little YouTube channel. We all have our little slice of that community that we're trying to put a spotlight on. And this winter was really funny because a lot of the people that I've encountered and made friends with live in or around Kentucky, and they were talking about gearing up for winter hiking and all this. And this one guy put out a video, how to set your tent up in the snow, and he's basically like sweeping away the snow to get down to the ground. And so in one of my videos, as kind of a joke, I sort of verbatim took his language from when he was talking about setting up his tent, but I'm on like 12 feet of snow.
Right.
So I'm showing how to set up a tent, in like gnarly deep, you could die from it snow, but I'm talking as though it's just like 3 or 4 inches. And it was he got a kick out of it and laughed. It was fun, but it was just one of those things where we were just like yo, you want to see some snow camping? All right. And me and Brian went out on the Pacific Crest Trail out towards Dorothy Lake, and in snowshoes and full gear and everything. And these guys are out there in just regular sort of insulated boots and normal like tents and stuff. And Brian and I are carrying shovels and ice axes, and it's just kind of a funny comparison to look at.
Have they been mainly welcoming to you online, like the hiking community, people you've talked to?
They've been amazing. They're I haven't had a single negative experience with anybody.
Wow.
It's everybody's super supportive. Everybody's really kind. Like there's a guy that follows my channel has 180 subscribers, and there's this guy whose channel has 30,000.
Oh
And
wow!
he watches and comments on all my videos. How you find time. And that's all this guy does. His name's Dan Becker, and his job is this YouTube channel. He quit his regular day job, and he just runs this hiking channel.
God bless him.
He'll still, yeah, it's crazy. It blows my mind that that's a thing that people can do for a living. Yeah, he'll take the time to watch people's channels and comment in their feed and stuff. And I'm just like, how do you find the time? 30,000 people are after your attention right now, and you're over here watching my silly little channel. So yeah, it's been a really cool experience. The whole thing has been really positive, and I think that's a big part of why I keep doing it. I think early on I got a little disappointed because I had so few followers and so few people were watching the videos and stuff, but this last couple months,
how that feels.
But yeah, this last couple months it's grown, and I'm in a weird spot with it now because I had stopped making videos to focus more on Atticus because we knew his time was short, and then the plague apocalypse happened, and most of the national parks and stuff are closed right now. And even early on in the first couple weeks of it, they were allowing day hikers, but you couldn't stay overnight, and now they're just closed, and it's most of the stuff around us is affected by those statewide closures. And so
can I ask, what do you think about that? Should a state park close in the case of a pandemic like this? What's your opinion?
So, probably going to piss some people off. I don't think they should have to close, but human beings can't be trusted to take good enough care of the park without supervision that they have to close it. And I think that was the big problem that they were seeing in a lot of the national parks was, obviously the ranger staff was diminished, for social distancing and layoffs and furloughs and everything like that. And people were just trashing the parks. There's just garbage all over the place, and the bathrooms were being vandalized and all this stuff. So I think the parks should be able to stay open, but I don't think we as a species are well behaved enough that they can be.
I agree with that.
Man is the bastard. That's what I heard. All I heard.
Well, that was the thing. I could very easily walk into any of the national parks right now and just go camp.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a thing I could do. But do I want to? I feel like a big part of my channel is advocating, leave no trace practices and really being stewards of the parks that we get to visit. And is that good stewardship? If I break the rules and walk in when they're trying to be closed, and I don't think it is. So that's why I'm staying.
Well, is there, Sean, anything you had left to all my goblins came home, so they're tearing up the house. Any last questions you had, or Jim, any last things you wanted to close with?
Well, thanks for having me. This has been fun. I enjoyed it. I'm glad you guys can still do your podcast remotely. And I think that was a pretty innovative way to make it. I wish there was a way I could keep doing YouTube videos right now, but it's hard
Green
to run
screen, man.
Right? Well, I did. Did you guys watch the last one where I went camping in my backyard?
Yeah.
So that one was kind of funny. So I'm trying to come up with some more ideas like that are just kind of silly and goofy, just to kind of keep the momentum going. But it's hard to run a hiking channel when you can't go hiking.
Yeah.
It's finding that content is I'm trying to come up with some more creative ways and get back into the swing of it. And then, is it cool if I plug my current band while we're here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you guys just dropped an album, right?
We did. We dropped it on April 1st because we thought it was hilarious. So we recorded the record like a year ago, and we finally got it pressed to vinyl, and we finally got the vinyl in our hands. And we had this huge plan to do a record release at Drag Me Under's 10th anniversary show. And obviously that's on hold until shows can happen again. And so many people were asking, oh, when's the record coming out? When's the record coming out? When's the record coming out? And I was like, man, I don't know. We can't play shows. We can't do anything. And then Bandcamp did a day where they were waiving their fees for all of the bands. So if you bought anything off Bandcamp on that specific day, the bands got 100% of it. Yeah, and it was really cool. And I had actually, before they had decided to do that, I had kind of decided, that's the day I'm going to put our record out. And then they did that, and so I held off because I just didn't think, we're not a touring band, and we don't rely on them for any kind of financial stability. It's a hobby for us. So it seemed kind of shitty to me to drop our record on a day that was designed to help artists who live off their art. So I scrapped that idea and waited. And then, April Fool's Day was just around the corner. I'm like, we should totally announce that we're dropping the record on April Fool's Day, because at least a few people will go, but really, are they? And it worked out really well. It was super fun, and the response to it has been mind blowing. Like, I've been boxing up and mailing records out all over the country for the last 2 weeks, and every single time somebody buys a record, I'm just like, really? Why? Like, but
that's how I used to feel.
I'm really excited. We're super proud of the record. We're really happy. It's on Bandcamp. It's on all of the streaming services, and we still have some of the vinyl left. So there's my plug for the scattering.
Oh yeah, man. It's been super awesome to even hear some of this stuff, and I would encourage everyone, like, Goatlord hiking. I love watching videos. You're not this pretentious yuppie douchebag. It's great videos. Jim puts out music, which I've always enjoyed. And Jim Williams, I would advise you guys, like, especially now, like, even if he doesn't have a ton, new content, whatever, go look at the old videos, give him a like. It really is worth your time. And I'm not even a huge person on hiking, and it made me want to get more involved going outdoors. So I would say give him a like, subscribe, follow him, and give his music a shot. I think it's worth listening to.
Yeah, actually, I'll just say too that when Seth and I were on a trip, we took a trip to Santa Cruz, and we were driving over Donner Pass. All Seth could talk about was how badly he wanted to go hiking because he was watching Goatlord hiking, and he wanted to get out into the wild. And so it really is some good inspirational stuff. And in addition to that, go download the Scattering's brand new album.
Oh yeah. On
Bandcamp, or order some vinyl. Now, do you Lysol that vinyl?
So I sent out 5 records today, and I did wipe down the outside of the boxes with Clorox wipes. And after I did it, I was like, it's kind of silly because like 100 other people are going to touch this before it gets to the person that ordered it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like literally everyone who works at the post office is going to get this. But if you're local Reno Sparks, we've worked out a pretty good system for contactless delivery. So if you want to hit us up on Facebook, we do Venmo or PayPal, and I will deliver your record safely and virus-free.
Awesome.
You're not going to get that guarantee anywhere else, folks. Virus-free. You heard it here.
That's right. Well, that's all I've got.
Dude, that was actually awesome. We actually had like a coherent podcast with questions. So yeah, Jim, thank you so much for coming on Goatlord Hiking. It's been a blast, man, having you on.
Yeah, I had a good time. Thanks for inviting me. This was awesome.
All right, Sean, you want to close us out?
Yeah, it was great to talk to you. Zip it up.
Zip it out.
And that's what we do.
That's what we do.
Life is a lot tougher than school days.